Let's go, girls. Come on.
From New York City to Los Angeles, Powered Up with Beck and Franklin is giving women of all ages permission to live the life they've always dreamed of. Why live in black and white when you can choose the brilliance of 3D and Technicolor? Each week, Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin and their high-powered guests will be here to cheer you on, to share their challenges, their successes, and what they've learned along the way. It's all about women supporting women. The stories and practical tips on sex, beauty, money, and so much more are designed to help you reconnect to the powerful woman you are. Fabulous knows no limits. Now it's time for you to expand your boundaries. Here are Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and Powered Up Talk Radio, and I'm here with my lovely co-host Linda Franklin, and we're going to talk today about being blocked, about being overwhelmed, frustrated, burned out. Linda, I think we've all hit this at some point or other in our lives.
Yeah, I think we do too, but I don't think we know the underlying reason behind it. And I think that's important to know, because we always talk on the show about being conscious. You know, that's watching yourself and see what you do and your behaviors, and keeping track of how you feel. So, you know, this is just part of it, and this is a very important part. I just want to read a couple of sentences, and then we can talk about it, because I think it's really interesting. Events are not problems. They're just events. Your resistance to them is what causes the problem. When you resist, you block energy. This energy block builds up to the point you blow up or you shut down completely. That's what it means to be stressed out or totally burnt out. Now, I think that that's very profound, because knowing what we do to ourselves is the first step in changing our behavior, I think.
It is the first step in changing our behavior, because when we know better, we do better. I'm pleased to tell you today that this episode of Powered Up is brought to you by Casper. Casper Mattress is an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price. Right now, you can get $50 off any mattress purchase just by going to casper.com/poweredup, like the name of the show, and enter the promo code Powered Up, like the name of the show, when you make your purchase. Now, one of the things, I got a mattress in the mail, Linda. It was really funny. I was expecting this Casper mattress that I'd ordered online, and I thought it would come in this great big truck. And instead, it comes in this big box. I opened the box. The kids and I are so excited. One of the things, if you do open your mattress, make sure you open it in a room that the mattress should be in. I didn't. We opened it up in the living room, and it like unfolds, and it's like magic. It's vacuum sealed. So once you open that vacuum seal, it's kind of like a bound up Christmas tree. It just puffs up, and goes all over. And I thought it was really cool, because you can vacuum seal it, and it's movable, and it's still a really good engineered mattress. And they say it's obsessively engineered, which is part, near and dear to my nerdy little heart. But I thought it was fair priced, good price for a mattress, and it's memory foam. And that was a little different for me, because I had been sleeping on the same mattress for 26 years. And I know. But one of the things that I did notice is, I've got a 10-year-old, and sometimes he watches too much NCIS, and he gets scared in the middle of the night. He thinks somebody's coming in to kill him, or he thinks he's Agent Gibbs and says, "Hey, Proby, wake up." But when he comes in the middle of the night at 2 or 3 in the morning, normally I wake up, because it jiggles the bed, the mattress jiggles, and I feel him come in. He has come in twice since I got this mattress, and I have not felt him come in. And so it doesn't, like when your partner turns over or he turns over, I didn't feel anything. And the one thing we both noticed was that the mattress is really cool. Like, it stays cool. It stays at your body temperature. So I thought that was really cool. And if you're going to spend a third of your life on something, it should be pretty cool. You can buy Casper online. It's completely risk-free. And here's the best part. You have 100 days to return it. So if you don't like it within 100 days, you can return it. They don't have a showroom, so you don't have to go somewhere and lay on a mattress, which is kind of stupid because when you go and lay on a mattress somewhere, it's not a predictor of what you're going to sleep on in your home. The mattresses are made in the USA. If you're interested, use our show code Powered Up and you will get $50 off your mattress purchase. Okay, so we want to thank Casper. Our topic today is about being burned out. And I will say sleep was really a big part of me being burned out, Linda. But then when I read Michael Singer's book, The Untethered Soul, about blockages, I got a whole new perspective.
Yeah, but and we can relate to that because we were just talking about it on other shows about when you're I always used to say when your barrel is full, that was it. I say my barrel is full, I can't take anything else. And it wasn't. Now I'm understanding it wasn't the events that led up to my barrel being full. It was my inner resistance to some of the events that occurred that made my barrel full. So if I had just let those things pass through me and not internalize them, I wouldn't have felt that my barrel was full, or you say, that you've had it, you've got to shut down, or I'm stressed out, or I'm just burnt out. I mean, we do that to ourselves. The events that we experience in our lives are not doing it to us. We're doing it to ourselves because we've stored up all of these energies from God knows back in time. And so we have an opinion or an emotional response or an energetic response to all these things, and voila, it's just too much. So I am really trying to practice now that I know better to let these things just pass through me, not reacting quite so quickly, just watching like I'm in a movie. In fact, there was a dear friend today. She says, I've got a terrible meeting tomorrow morning. I'm not looking forward to it. I said, well, just go in and watch yourself like you are watching yourself in a movie and just sort of just observe it all and don't get upset. I think you're going to have a very successful outcome. So we'll see. I mean, it works. I mean, it worked for you. It works for me. So, I mean, we're a good cross-reference, right?
Well, it does. And it works for me when I'm aware of things. Where I struggle is when a feeling or an emotion comes up kind of out of the blue. It's been triggered by something else. And that's where I'm really excited to have Allen Vaysberg today on the show with us. Allen is a great longtime friend of mine. He's an author. He's a poet. He's a speaker. He's done so much. I don't know what you are, Allen. You wear so many hats. You're a loving husband. You're a great, super fun dad. How do you describe yourself when you come onto a show like this?
Well, you forgot dog owner and a dog rescuer. But
then we love you automatically.
Thank you very much. Really, I don't describe myself in any way other than I am a man who is going through his own stuff, just like all of us do. But what I try to do is I try to share my experiences, and I try to share the wisdom that comes out of that because I'm hoping to help other people, and I'm hoping that when they encounter things like this, then they will have more support and they don't have to make the same mistakes that I've done. So all of the ways in which I share that you've mentioned are just extensions of that practice of trying to help people.
Well, and that's one of the things that I love about you is I've watched you reinvent yourself over the years. Each time, you're like the Bionic Man. You're like stronger, you're faster, But it is really fun. I mean, it's fun to see you evolve over time. And one of the things that I do love about you is that when you learn something, like when you have one of your Allen Vaysberg aha moments, you can't wait to share it with the world. And that's why I listen to your stuff. I watch what you post on Facebook because it's always insightful and it always makes me think.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I actually take great pride in that because I believe that all of us are put on this earth for our different reasons. And one of the reasons why I'm here is to share. it's to inspire. And any thought that comes in, I feel that it's my obligation to actually share it with the world. Some people won't get it, but some people it'll be something that really is insightful to them and something that will help them in whatever it is that they're going through right now, because I know that what I'm going through is just a microcosm of what others are experiencing. So it is my obligation and a pleasure to share, and I'll continue doing that.
So I know, like, you did a lot about stress management. You did a lot about stress. Yep. Do you, when you were teaching this stuff, like in the beginning, you didn't talk about blockages and things like that, or did you?
In a way, I did, but certainly not to this extent. And I was actually very happy that you have mentioned the word triggers, because for the last 8 months, I've been going through an experience where I was burnt out. And I was resisting, and understanding where all of that is coming from and understanding the stressors that actually are leading to my response was very important. So I was talking about these things. I was talking about how to overcome stress and how to snap out of it. But the last 8 months gave me a front seat to how somebody with my experience with teaching others how to overcome stress can still get very stressed out himself. So that gave me a much deeper perspective and more tools in my toolkit so I can help people not to do that.
Well, because I think it's one thing, Linda and I were talking, she's really great. She was really great, was really great at preparing me for certain things. Like if I have to go to court, for my divorce, or I have a big meeting for my company and I get nervous, she teaches me to watch it like a film strip or watch it like a movie and just set back, so that your emotion doesn't get too high. And that's really great advice. And it's served me well in all these areas. But where I struggle is when these triggers come up, when these things, like when I can't catch up to my emotions, like the trigger happens, the emotions happen, and I'm already moving forward even before kind of my mind realizes it. Now, I'm going to take us to commercial break. I want to thank Casper Mattress for their sponsorship today. If you do want $50 off your mattress purchase, you can go to casper.com/Sandra. That's casper.com/Sandra and get $50 off any mattress purchase. And there is free shipping and returns in the U.S. and Canada.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
LinkedIn. It's a great tool and a great way to do business in today's social media-driven world. And Carol McManus is the LinkedIn Lady with the LinkedIn Lady Show, Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m. Eastern on allbusinessradionetwork.com. The LinkedIn Lady Show is designed to inform, inspire, and educate businesses. Every social media site has a specific demographic, personality, and purpose. And the LinkedIn Lady will interview a variety of guests, such as business owners who can showcase their business and talk about how they use social media, such as Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Google+, Pinterest, and of course, LinkedIn. For more on Carol and the show, check out her website, LinkedInLady.com. As trends change and new applications become available, the LinkedIn Lady Show will bring that information to you in an easy-to-use, fun, and engaging way. Every Tuesday and Wednesday afternoons at 4 p.m. Eastern, it's the LinkedIn Lady Show with Carol McManus on allbusinessradionetwork.com.
It's words you never heard.
Did you ever wonder about the origin of Murphy's Law? You know the maxim that if anything can go wrong, it will. Murphy's Law was named after Captain Edward A. Murphy, an engineer working at Edwards Air Force Base in 1949. Captain Murphy was working on a project designed to measure how much sudden deceleration a human could stand in a crash. After discovering a transducer constructed for the experiment was wired wrong, Murphy squabashed the technician responsible by exclaiming, "If there's any way to do it wrong, you'll find it." In other words, circumvent mistakes and miscabobbles before they happen. Aerospace manufacturers began quoting Murphy's Law to their engineers, and soon it became an eponym.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
We're back with Sandra, Beck, and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and this is Powered Up Talk Radio with Linda Franklin, and we are visiting today with Allen Vaysberg. Now, when we were going to commercial break, I shared a little bit about how hard it is when these triggers trigger an emotion in me and I feel something and I don't realize I'm feeling something and a lot of times acting upon it until it's much later. It's one thing to be prepared for an event like going to court or going into a big meeting or going into a discussion with a partner, a boyfriend, girlfriend, or a friend where there's a problem. You can prepare for that. It's the non-prepared triggers that I struggle with. And in The Untethered Soul, which is this book Linda and I are reading by Michael Singer, they liken it to these little rocks. They're like a little rock gets built in your heart, if you will, every time you have an unresolved emotion. And these little rocks build up in your heart and they slowly close your heart down. So I want to talk to both Allen and Linda about this closing down, opening up process, because it contributes to our stress load tremendously. And when we have a trigger, and a trigger can be from 25 years ago, it still affects us today. So what do we do, and what can we do in the moment, even if we don't recognize it yet? I'm going to go to Allen Vaysberg first.
Sounds great. Well, so all of us are triggered, and it's that idea when I was teaching people how to overcome stress, people wanted to get rid of stress. You don't get rid of stress. Stress is a natural reaction, just like a trigger is a natural reaction. It is your pinpoint to something that needs to be resolved. So you can block it out, or you can accept it. By shining light upon something, we actually see what it is about. So it may be a little more difficult to do in a moment, but take a note of it. Take a note of some trigger and then come back to it. And there is no better way of getting to it but introspection. You can call it meditation. You can call it just kind of digging and finding out what's going on. But you want to deal with that trigger. It's like pain. Pain is a way of body communicating to us. Same thing with these triggers. What you want to be careful with, and I want to come back to something that was discussed a little bit earlier, is kind of allowing things to go through you, but not focusing on them. Be careful not to disconnect, because if we take that to not an extreme, but if we take that a little bit further, we will tend to get disconnected, and that will become a mechanism that prevents us from actually diving in, accepting, swimming in those waters, emotional waters, and we'll kind of stay apart. And when you stay apart, you're not participating fully in the process. So it's a fine line, and it's a balance of how to be fully present, but also how not to be fully triggered. And that's something that takes a little bit of time.
Linda, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to just read a couple of sentences from the book because, I mean, this is all new stuff, but, it's just like I just get so excited because it seems so real. It says, most situations, there's nothing to deal with except your own fears and desires. If you don't have fear or desire about an event, there's really nothing to deal with. You simply allow life to unfold and interact with it in a natural and rational manner. It's like being in the moment. But we have so much, that the fear and the desire, I guess is part of the resistance, and that comes out first. And we it's like that voice talking to us in our head, and we're not even paying attention to what's going on. We're so busy thinking and fearing or desiring something that we kind of lose it. I can relate to that.
Yeah, and I think if I can jump in for a second, I think when you were reading that statement, it's a beautiful statement from the book. We're talking about attachment. It is a personal attachment to a part of the consequence. So whatever is happening, we're attached to some part of it. And if we let go of that attachment, and I let me give you a different example. When I talk about relationships to people, and man and a woman, when they're discussing something or when they're getting, they're on the first date, you're either attached to a result or you're actually being open to whatever happens. So are we being with other people at work or in any other relationship? Are we with other people because we expect something in return and we're attached to that? Are we being nice to the other person because the other person will do something for us? Or are we just being with that person and appreciating them for who they are and we don't expect anything in return? Same thing with any of these situations. If we have an attachment, if we have a need for something to happen, then we'll always block because we're trying to get that energy, we're trying to hold on to it, as opposed to allowing everything to flow, as opposed to being objective and not wanting anything from it, just being an active participant in it, and then what happens does.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful, and that's, again, like being in the moment, just, paying attention and not being so inside yourself with everything that's going on inside that you're missing 90% of what's going on. And I think that we've all done that, but again, being conscious and looking at what's going on inside of yourself, I think that's like, wow, that's a biggie, because if we look at it and we recognize it, then we have the power not to do it anymore. It's like a habit, and if we let these things pass enough times, eventually we're not going to go there. We're just going to be present in the moment.
Yeah, and that's the difference when people are talking about, I have no expectations. Does that mean that I don't care? No, I care greatly, but I have no expectations. That means I am open to the possibilities as opposed to focusing on a specific aspect of it. I learned that, and I think the best thing you can do if you want to learn how to be in the moment, you can go either through training to be a psychic or intuitive, or you can go take an improv class, because both are going to teach you to really just let go. Let go, don't have any expectations, don't have any wishes. You are essentially out, and you are being there in that moment because you have no other choice. You're either on stage or you have somebody asking you a question, and you have to respond. You cannot have a preconceived notion about anything. You cannot pre-script it. You just have to be there ready to respond with whatever comes next.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that my kids have always busted me on, and I don't have an answer for. They're like, and then granted they call me hippie mom, but they're like, you're such a hippie mom. You just kind of sit there and let like all these parents go by, all the, the PTO, the drama. But my little guy said to me, Alan, he's like, Mom, it's like you don't care. And I struggled a lot with that answer because the thing is, I really don't care. I don't really care about the outcome. There's going to be an outcome. It doesn't have anything to do with me. And it's that I care, but I don't care. I mean, you really don't care. I'm not vested in any outcome. So there is a part of it that is you don't care.
It's true. And again, it's really about attachment. Do I care whether I'm going to go left or I'm going to go right? I don't care. I may have a preference, and if I go left, I may like some things, and if I go right, I may not like some things, but I know that I'm strong enough to deal with whatever happens. So by us specifically picking and choosing, our attention and our energy are in the same place. So if we choose that this possibility or these parents who are there at the PTO meetings, I'm going to focus on them, then we start being invested. Then we start being attached to an outcome. Then we start getting into the old triggers of, well, I wouldn't behave this way because my mother taught me better. I mean, all of these things are starting to come up, and then we start being personally invested. And then from the energetic standpoint, we go down. We become more dense, as opposed to being a little bit more open-minded and not judgmental. Because we have no expectations, we have no horse in the running. We're really just being present. And when you're present, yes, we can say that we don't care, but it's not about caring. We are present, we're participating, and we don't have an outcome that we're seeking.
Linda, what do you think?
Well, Sandra, I said this on the show a couple of weeks ago, but I think it bears repeating, and because it all connects. My friend was walking with his sister and his dog in a park in Connecticut, and it was a beautiful day, and people were sitting on benches and people were out walking their dogs, and and he's got a big bulldog, and as he walked by, all the other dogs were kind of jumping out. They wanted to play, but Armando was just focused and kept on walking, and this happened like 10 or 12 times, and finally his sister said to my friend, she said, "What's with him? How come he's not, paying attention?" And he said he made a choice not to participate. And so he's just walking, he's focused, he's just out for a nice walk. He wasn't playing with the other dogs. And that's on certain things, like you said at those meetings, you're choosing not to participate with some of the craziness that's going on. That doesn't mean that you don't care. It's just you're not participating because there's nothing to gain by participating in crazy. You're letting it go by.
Yeah, and it's an active choice. By choosing not to participate, you're still making an active choice. You're making a choice of keeping your energy as opposed to expending your energy or letting it out. Because we are, and when we're talking about being burnt out, it just means that all of our energy has been wasted. So we need to keep the energy around, if you wish.
Well, I think it's really important that we have these conversations because it does come up. People do think you don't care just because you don't choose to engage, but you can't engage in everything. You'll drive yourself bananas. And if you try to help everybody and if you try to be all things to all people, that's where those stress balls you kind of rear their ugly head. And it's really hard to stay heart open and loving and centered when you want to rip somebody's head off. And so, well, we call it stress. We call it stress. There's lots of things we can call it. But right now we're going to call for a commercial break. My name is Sandra Beck. I'm here with Linda Franklin, and we are visiting with Allen Vaysberg, and we are going to go to commercial break. And when we come back, we're going to find some tools, tips, tricks, and techniques that are going to help us not want to rip people's heads off. And we'll have a much more peaceful day, which I'm sure will make Allen and Linda very happy, because I know it will me.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
This is for all you girls about 42. Tossing pennies into the fountain of youth.
It's words you never heard.
Do women need larger parking spaces? The owners of the Togla rest stop in southeastern China think so. They have created a number of parking spaces that are 50% larger, designated for female drivers, with the international symbol for women and outlined in pink. When asked by a Chinese newspaper why they felt the need to enlarge the parking spaces for women drivers, a lot manager explained that they observed female drivers having a difficult time parking, which slowed down the order of traffic. I admit I'm a bit of a baby bummel or bungler when it comes to parking, but is this really necessary? Actually, I was complimented on my parking the other day. Someone left a note that said, "Parking? Fine."
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
Have you heard? The pages of American Patchwork and Quilting magazine come to life on our new weekly online radio show, American Patchwork and Quilting. Join Pat Sloan, our blogging and quilt designer host, as she talks about the latest trends, ideas, and inspirations. Her guests include quilt pattern designers, authors, quilt shop owners, and our editors, all quilters, just like you. Call in with your questions. Get quilting tips from industry experts. Learn about free patterns. Hear behind-the-scenes stories from our magazines, American Patchwork and Quilting, Quilt Sampler, and Quilts and More. Get the scoop on free stuff and find out more about the best independent quilt shops in North America. To listen to a live show, tune in Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. Just log on to allpeoplequilt.com/radio. To hear past shows, go to iTunes and search for American Patchwork and Quilting Radio. We hope you'll join us because we know that quilting changes everything.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's some more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
This is for all you girls about 42.
Hey ladies, this is Sandra Beck and I'm here with Linda Franklin and we're visiting today with Allen Vaysberg and we're talking about staying heart open, about reducing our stress and handling our triggers. And a trigger is something that comes up from a memory and it strikes you right in the heart and you feel something. And sometimes triggers are good. You know, you can have happy triggers, but there's also triggers of anger, hostility, jealousy. All these triggers can come up, or feelings of inadequacy or insecurity. And if we don't identify these things, we're really being driven by our past self. You know, like if we were a bus, our, 5-year-old would get on and drive the bus for the afternoon, and we would walk through the current day thinking we're inadequate. We're back to that 5-year-old girl who the teacher never called on and, didn't get a star after her spelling name. And as funny and prosaic as these things sound as an adult, they really do affect us. Who wants to talk first about a trigger?
I'm happy to talk. I have many triggers that I have to had to deal with, and you named a couple of them right there. By the way, Linda, ladies first, if you'd like to go ahead.
No. Trigger. We've had shows in the last month, and we've talked about thorns. Those are things that get stuck in us, and we don't let them go through. And then we do all of these things to protect ourselves from getting that thorn poked. And eventually, we build up enough walls around that thorn that we're a prisoner in our own life. And it's the same thing. It's trigger, thorn. I think they're synonymous. It's the same thing. So what we have to do is examine that, look and try to get rid of our triggers and or thorns because they're just not they're not helping us to have a happy, peaceful life, and I think that's what we all want.
Actually, Linda, and I'll get to my triggers in a second, but just something that you said in terms of triggers and thorns made me think, and visually speaking, go with me on this, but if we touch a thorn, does the rose feel pain, or do we?
I think we do.
Right. And when our trigger gets touched, do we feel pain, or the other person?
We do.
Right. And I'm thinking that I agree with your analogy that thorns and triggers are similar. But I think when you put them together in that analogy, I think when we are triggered, others are feeling it too. And that part is a very interesting analysis because when we are triggered, from the energetic perspective, it makes perfect sense, right? Our energy changes, everybody is feeling it around us. Mm-hmm. But I think when we are triggered, we are sending that trigger to other people. So just like if we were a thorn, which makes me think that a rose is feeling when we're actually touching his thorn, but that's a separate conversation.
This is why I like Alan. Alan and I can talk each other into circles and go round and round. It's really fun. But I get what you're saying. It's like, whereas, you touch the rose and you prick your finger, you're like, ow, that hurts. Okay, the rose isn't hurt, your finger hurts, whatever. But when you touch a personal thorn inside you and you feel something, most of us then exhibit certain behaviors. We might snap at people, we might yell at people, and now we've transferred that pain energy from the finger prick to everyone else around us, just like throwing a pebble in a pond and watching the ripples go out.
I know, we go from a finger prick to being a prick, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway, since all of us ladies are talking, so back to triggers. So you've for me, the biggest trigger is, am I living my life in a way in accordance with why I actually came here? So any time in my life that I don't feel like I am and I'm not living my essence, that drives me nuts. That is on an automatic trigger. I spent 15 years building IT firms. So I had a certain level of success there, and I view myself as an owner and a CEO. When I go into corporate world, they could care less. So in the corporate world, it's hard to get a manager job because they don't care. They don't care that you've built something from nothing into a multi-million-dollar company. It doesn't matter to them because you haven't done it in the corporate. So there's another trigger of, what do you mean I can't be a manager? I'm a CEO. So there's triggers upon triggers upon triggers upon triggers. When somebody is talking to you, and I'm not a person who's ego-driven at all. I don't feel like I view myself very seriously. I view what I want to do seriously, but I don't view myself seriously. But even that, the triggers are there. So one of the positions that I was just interviewing for is a senior manager position, and it has an office. Guess what? There's another trigger. Ooh, I'm going to get an office. Does it really matter? Does it really matter? And by the way, that would have been a pay cut for me, but there's an office. Ooh, the ego gets triggered. It's like all of these things are a fun game. Or me growing up as a boy, and I was always the friend and never the boyfriend. Not the leading man material, although I think that has changed since. But it's that trigger, right? Am I good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I good looking enough? All of these are triggers that we grow up with based on our own internal belief system, based on what the society at large is thinking of us, based on our parents, our family, our friends, and everything else. We've accumulated them, and this is just from this lifetime. What happens from the previous lifetimes?
Oh,
so
boy.
we keep walking around with all of that stuff, and until you let it go, until you start really paying attention to them and release all of that stuff, because we don't care. What I'd like to look at is life in 3 phases. We're either little kids when we are completely wide open. We are wide open, we love the world, we think everybody is wonderful, and we don't care what others are thinking about us because we think that we're awesome. Then we have the third part of our life, which is the ending piece, right? The ending piece is when we are senior citizens. And we could really care less what anybody thinks of us because we're old enough and we know who we are and we don't care what anybody else says. So both at the beginning and at the end, we are relaxed, we are ourselves, but most of our lifetime, we keep putting ourselves in a wall, really worrying about what others are thinking, what we're thinking, what do we have to do, how do others perceive us? Who cares? Live your life as if you're a little kid or an older person. Don't worry about it. Just be yourself. And when you're yourself, you're not going to be blocked. You're not going to have that resistance because it's not going to trigger you. The ego is less.
Yeah, I agree with children, but the older people, I think that you have to do the work. I don't think you automatically get there with age.
That's a fair statement. It just I think for the most part, whether the older people are wrong, they still don't care what you think of them.
Yeah.
Well, and I will say, living with an 8 to 80-year-old, in my household, they're remarkably similar. They live very much in the moment. They don't seem to hold grudges and hang on to things. It's very interesting to see, an 8 and an 80-year-old.
I know I found it so interesting. I have 2 kids. My daughter is 12 and my son is 7, but I am, this planner and I am this teacher and I am thinking, okay, well, this is going to be a right choice for you right now. And then we're going to go to this and then I'm going to make you into a well-balanced and rounded person. And I'll do all of that stuff. But talking to your kids about the future, they get freaked out. They don't want to think about the future. They want to think about right now. Mm-hmm. That's how they're wired. And I think if we rewire ourselves a little bit backwards, we can plan for the future, but let's live in the present.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And, and the present right now is a pretty interesting place. People may call it scary. I think it's kind of exciting because there's so many changes happening, and they're happening so fast that it's like, holy mackerel. Between the politics and the media, and every day there's these new crazy things happening, and there's people are, I mean, I understand people are scared. And people don't know what's going on or what's going to happen. And they're looking, I don't know if they're looking for some solace from outside of themselves, but if they are, they're not going to get it. I mean, that peace, that, calmness, that knowing everything is going to be okay, it has to come from inside of you. And maybe what's going on now is a good thing, because people are going to have to come back to themselves to find the peace they're looking for.
Yes, that's such a valuable insight. Absolutely, because nobody is going to give you peace. Nobody is going to give you comfort. It only comes from within. All of the answers, all of the ideas, all of our relaxation starts within. Now, we can then take that and extrapolate it to the energetic perspective, that what is within is connected to without, within is connected to the universe, within is connected to our higher self. That's when we are centered, that's when we're aligned, that's when we're receiving the information, and we're receiving that peace. But all of that starts within. And I think it's great. I agree with you. I think it's great that what happens right now is allowing people to take a broader look. And then they can decide for themselves, who are they really? What do they believe in? That comes from within. That brings them to within, so they can actually go through and analyze that. Talk about triggers. Turn on the television and see how triggered you are in 30 seconds. So yes. I think it's actually it's a fascinating time.
And how can people reach you? I'm going to take us to commercial break. How do you want people to find you?
I think the easiest way is just to go to the newlovetriangle.com. That's a website for my latest book, and all the information is there.
thenewlovetriangle.com. Okay, we're going to come back from the break. We're going to talk more about this with Linda Franklin and Allen Vaysberg. You can find him at thenewlovetriangle.com. It's a great book, by the way. I've got a copy. I gave copies to both my kids and to my nieces and nephews for Christmas. I thought it was a really well-done book and simplified things, especially for teenagers. I know it wasn't written for teenagers, Allen, but I found it to be really, really super helpful for the teens in my life that are driving me nuts. When we come back from the break, I know, like everything's driving me nuts today. When we come back from the break, we'll talk more with Allen Vaysberg and Linda Franklin on Powered Up Talk Radio. We will be back after this break.
We've got lots more Powered Up with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin after these messages.
Welcome to Geraldine Tegelov Live, the show that shares with you the secrets of redefining, reinventing, and rebuilding your life. Having pulled herself from the rubble of financial ruin and having gone on to create a highly successful career, Geraldine has become an expert in the art of transformation. She believes that it doesn't matter where you are right now, how overwhelmed you feel, or how impossible the task of turning your life around may seem. You can do it. Stay tuned as metaphysician, international best-selling author, and intuitive Geraldine Tegelov gives you the inner understanding and the outer practical how-to to create your amazing life. Gain a fresh perspective on how to redefine, reinvent, and rebuild your life. Join Geraldine Tegelov live every Tuesday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on the TogiNet Radio Network.
A few years ago, some fishermen off the coast of Italy discovered some pottery along with fish in their nets. Divers were called out and discovered an ancient Roman ship whose galley, or caboose, a nautical term for kitchen, was extremely intact. Some of the food uncovered on board was pickled fish, wine, oil, and grain used to make the ship's biscuits, otherwise known as dandy funks. It is thought the 2,000-year-old boat was probably on its way to Spain when it sunk and was covered by layers of mud, baggy wrinkles and all. Baggy wrinkles are another name for the ship's ropes. The mud protected the ship from wear, explaining why the leftover food on board was still in such good condition. We land lubbers may not be familiar with leftovers on the sea, but we are familiar with leftovers in our kitchen.
It's marching neighborhood.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
We're back with Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin. Here's more Powered Up with Beck and Franklin.
Hey, ladies, this is Sandra Beck, and I'm here with Linda Franklin and Allen Vaysberg. And boy, was that commercial break an exercise in breathe in and breathe out. When stuff like this happens, I don't find myself getting as upset as I would if like if it was caught unaware. It's like, well, Skype has problems, commercial breaks have problems, there's all good things. Alan, do you have a go-to trick, or maybe Linda, you do, for when you start feeling something rise in you, like anger or anxiety, frustration? What do you do? Like, my mom always taught me to count to 10, but counting to 10 really doesn't resolve anything. It just slows me down. Do you have a trick that you use or something that can help when something's triggered?
Go ahead, Linda. I'm going to count to 10.
I'm much better than I used to be, because if something triggered me, my first innate reaction is to attack. And I don't do that so much anymore. I'm taking that time to let it go, because I know if I go in that, I guess it's age, Alan. I know that if I go in that direction, it's not going to be good. So I hold back. So
go ahead.
Because
go ahead.
They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. I know if I go there, it's not going to be a good result, especially at home with my husband. So I'm really learning not to go there anymore. It took me a long time to not. But with all of the work that we've been doing on the show and reading these different books and having wonderful guests like you, it's making a difference. I am changing. It was interesting. I was talking to a friend today, and he has several friends that, they're not quite where we are, but they're, I guess they're trying to get there. But what they're saying is, I'm feeling disoriented these days, and I'm a little concerned because the things that worked for me before are not working for me now. Mm-hmm. And my friend said, that's a very good thing. Now you have to figure out what does work for you now.
Like Arnold said, I'm a learning machine. We're not the same as we were 10 seconds ago. We're changing, we're evolving, or we're devolving, but I think that's evolution nevertheless. You have to find new ways, because we are continuously restructuring. Our brain waves, everything is getting changed. So, yeah, you do have to find new things. There is new energy around. You do have to find new ways. And to answer your question, Sandra, when you asked me what kind of my go-to things are, if I'm in a conversation and I'm noticing that I'm not present, the first thing that comes to mind, or that I try to bring to mind, is a phrase, "It's not about you." Because I want to remove the focus from me into that other person that I'm in a conversation with, or into the event that I'm on. It's not about me. And once I remove that, then I don't get triggered. Then I don't start thinking about the outcomes. I don't start thinking about what is the right thing to say. It's not about me. It's about being present in the moment. So that has worked really well for me over the last couple of years.
Wow. See, I guess, I guess it's about
so much of this is about slowing down. We work so fast. Alan, like you and I, we want to talk here in Chicago. I'm in LA. We just look on like I'll text you and you're like, hey, you got a minute? Sure. And then we're connected within 30 seconds and we're like fire stuff back and forth. Okay, I'll talk to you in a week. Blah, blah, blah. And that transaction happens so fast.
Yeah.
But computers and like you're a nerd like me, which is why I love you. And so you get that like our emotions don't work as fast as our processors. So my processor's going a mile a minute in my head. So is yours. But you seem to be more connected with your feelings than I am.
I'm kind of raw, so I am open. As opposed to people who are a little bit more guarded of their emotions, I'm raw. So if something upsets me, it upsets me. But then I work through it probably a little bit quicker because I'm used to and I'm very self-aware, so I notice it right away. And then I start asking questions. Okay, what's going on? Let's stop for a second. What's causing this? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I getting triggered? What am I worried about? It's not about me. Get out. Okay, move on. So it's this constant readjustment. You and I, Sandy, talk about recalibration. Recalibration is really just that. It's the constant adjustment. In any relationships, in any situation, it's this constant minor adjustments that we're going until we find that balance. Then anytime that we get out of balance, we try to get back in. So that probably is kind of more of how I operate, but I'm very raw from the emotional perspective, especially if I'm feeling energetically spent. Things can get to me very quickly, but then I kind of snap back because I understand what state I'm on, and then I step back, I recharge, and then I'm back to my normal mode. So it's know thyself. I think that's the easiest and the hardest thing to do.
Well, and I like your little checklist. That's one thing, like where you and I have always been on the same page. Like if you tell me, okay, Stan, go through the checklist. Like, what is happening here? What are you feeling? Because there's like I have to stop and think about what I'm feeling. Like, which for a girl is really rough because most of my female friends, they're like just oozing emotion everywhere, and they're talking about their feelings, and I just sit there like a stump going, all right, well, I need to sit down and think about my feelings and kind of go through my processing checklist, and then I'll answer.
Okay, San, here's a virtual computer hug.
From one nerd to another.
Yeah, I'm much more feminine, I guess, in that regard. That's why I feel, anytime I go to a seminar and that's 400 women and 2 guys, I feel very comfortable because I like swimming in that energy. I have no problem with emotions or really diving deep and understanding it. So for me, it's just kind of, that's the way I was wired. It's a little easier.
Well, you're so good at it, and Linda too. Linda's Johnny on the spot. She's like, I feel this, and it she can identify her feelings. I'm like Sheldon Cooper. I need a chart to go, okay, uncomfortable. Does uncomfortable mean new or does uncomfortable mean bad? And, but I do have to go through that process. And I know I'm not the only person out there in the world like that.
No, and it's actually great because the fact that you're wired this way allows you to be more process-oriented. And for somebody like me, I'm much more feely as opposed to process-oriented. So both of us have to realize our strengths and then, get with the other side.
Right, because for some, like Linda, you said it was waiting a minute before you jump in. Mine, I'm like, I got to get off the bulldozer and, get off the mountain, come down the mountain, and then I'm ready.
Well, maybe we're making it too difficult for you, Sandra. For me, what I ask myself, or I did at the beginning, is does this thing that I'm doing or this thing that I'm feeling or where I am now make me feel good or does it make me feel bad? If it makes me feel bad, then I have to figure out, why is it? I don't like feeling bad. I don't like to be unhappy. So I then have to find a way to get out of that feeling bad back into feeling good. Because if you just go and just ask yourself that question, when you feel crappy and when you feel happy. So crappy, happy.
There you go. Love it.
So it's that easy. If you want good things to happen, if you want to feel good, if you want the universe to start bringing stuff to you, you got to be in the happy, peaceful place, not in the crappy place, because then your energy is way down there. And when it's way down there, nothing, it attracts more of what's way down there. So if you're aware of that, happy, crappy, make a choice.
I know. You just summed up law of attraction right there. Crappy, happy. That's it. San, I think that's the title of our next book. Crappy,
I was
happy.
just thinking that we should write a book, Crappy or Happy.
Crappy or happy. Well, it really does come down to that, because when I do my little algorithms, I have all these algorithms that help me decipher what's happening in the world, and it really always comes down to like binary, or like yes or no, positive or negative. It's really quite simple. But that simplicity causes me to have a hard time communicating it to others.
And it's everybody's going through this. I was just having a discussion with my 12-year-old daughter, who's a competitive dancer, and on one hand she wants to continue competing, on the other hand she wants to do theater and photography and other things. Then I said, look, it's a simple thing, because you're going to have to let go of one or the other just based on time. Which one is more important? And she's sitting there saying, I don't know. And I get it, but with everything, you have to get it down to that binary. So I totally understand you said.
Yeah, positive or negative, simplicity, baby. Because these books, Linda, like we've been doing this, Alan, like 3 years now, and we get new books every week to read and different things. And I'm so thankful that I have Linda here to decipher half of them.
Great.
Yeah, Sandra wants to make it very, very difficult, and I want to make it I want to make it easy. I like easy. I don't like complicated. So I try to break it down. So for my little lame brain, that how can I do this and make it easy to do it so that I'll do it.
Well, makes sense. I disagree with the lame brain part, but I agree with the rest.
Yeah, I disagree with the lame brain too, because I'm all what if, and then my little if then statements, and Linda's like, just like this. But it helps. It helps. Alan, do you have a piece of advice for us with respect to all this as we go into the last minute of the show?
Yeah, and it's not my phrase, but I'm going to use it. It's not that deep. Really, anytime you think it's that deep, just repeat to yourself, it's not that deep. It really is not. Let it go.
I'm going to take that to heart, Linda. What do you think? It's not that deep.
Absolutely. It's going to pass. It's another cloud, and we'll get through it, and we don't have to just sit there and dwell in it.
That's it. Allen Vaysberg, you can find him at the new lovetriangle.com. Get your copy. It's a lot of fun. It's a nice, skinny little book. You can stick it in your pocket and take it on the airplane. You can give it to your kids. It fits in a Christmas stocking. It's a great little book. It's very simple, very clear. I want to thank Allen Vaysberg for being our guest today. As always, Alan, you were wonderful, outstanding, charming, and my favorite of all the nerds out there. We'll be back again next week. This is Sandra Beck and Linda Franklin for Powered Up Talk Radio, and we will be back next week with another nerd. I'm not going to tell you who. You're going to have to come back.
We're so glad you joined us for Powered Up with Beck and Franklin. Sandra Beck, Los Angeles-based single mother and technology company owner, knows what it's like to be fit, funny, and fantastic in your 40s. Linda Franklin, a New Yorker with a successful marriage and prominent